Hello, Trail Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Today, we have with us Dr. Debi Silber. She's a PhD in something quite fascinating. Today, we're going to learn about betrayal, forgiveness, shame, how to resolve these complicated traumas in our past that are affecting our physical health in the now and our mental health and our energy. She says the number one complaint that people have when they have this unresolved trauma in their past is they have exhaustion. They're just fatigued. Their sleep is interrupted. They have anxiety and they're just tired because when our brain is running and running and running with all the stuff that's going on in the sidelines, all the things that are constantly triggering our unresolved trauma from the past, specifically our betrayal from the past. And it could be if our parents have betrayed us, if our partner betrayed us, a business partner, a friend. It could be something small, like a friend lying to us or breaking our trust. And it seems negligible. It seems tiny and insignificant, and yet we harbor mistrust. And deep inside, there are unresolved emotions that will come out that continue to trigger our stress response and continue to exacerbate or cause disease. And so Dr. Debi Silber has the most amazing program, and she lays it all out today, gives us amazing advice for healing and gaining the positive learnings so that we can have a post-betrayal transformation. Now, after the interview was over, I asked if she would be willing to gift one of our listeners one of her programs, and she said she would, and I thought that was so cool. So we talk about her programs during the interview, so you're going to hear about it, and the one that she's going to gift us is the program called Betrayal to Breakthrough Home Study 6-Week Program. She normally sells it for $297, and she's going to gift one of our lucky listeners this program. So how you can enter to be the winner, go to our Facebook group, just search Learn True Health in Facebook, or go to learntruehealth.com/group. That'll take you straight to the Facebook group. And once this show goes live, I'm going to post a comment about this episode and about this contest. Please comment below, follow the instructions. I'm going to say something along the lines of, what did you love about this? Or what did you learn that really was impactful for you when you listened to this interview? And then, so whatever your answer is the right answer. There's no wrong answer. So comment to enter, and there'll be a random draw to pick the winner about a week after this episode goes live. We started to do these awesome giveaways in the Facebook group from our guests, and it's so much fun. So as a listener, you want to definitely join the Facebook group to stay on top of and make sure that you always could get a chance to be a winner. Look forward to seeing you in the Facebook group. Enjoy today's episode, and please share this episode with those who you love, who you know have been betrayed in their past, because this could give them so much freedom in their life. They will be so grateful to you for sharing this episode with them. Thank you so much, and enjoy today's interview. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 303. Today we are in for such a treat. We have with us Dr. Debi Silber. We're here to talk about betrayal and how emotions, and specifically betrayal, can affect your physical health now and in the future. And not only physical health, but your mental health and your overall happiness and joy in life, and your ability to trust, to have great relationships, to have great communication, to get the most out of your life. Now, as women, we tend to push through things and push them to the side to take care of the immediate and to take care of everyone else and not put the oxygen mask on ourselves first. That's why, you know what, how silly it is that they have to tell us in an airplane to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help others, because women won't. They'll be helping everyone else and then they'll pass out from lack of oxygen. And men too, I'm sure. Especially all the listeners of this podcast are loving people who really want to help themselves and help others. So today we have with us Dr. Debi to help us dive into this topic that sometimes is so painful, we like to push it aside and ignore it. But then it festers and then it manifests in our life in other ways. Isn't that right, Debi?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And at some point or another, betrayal seems to rear its ugly head.
Wow. Well, I know, when we booked you on the show, I began to look back in my life and realized how many times I think betrayal has affected me. And I know that some of those events I'm really thankful for, because I've gone back and done the personal growth and let go of victimhood and sort of triumphed and gained some positive learnings from those experiences. But then I looked at a few other ones and went, wow, I think I have some unresolved stuff there. I'm still feeling some hurt and some anger there. And I think I'm really holding on to some stuff. So it was interesting, because normally we don't look at our life in that way and look, where have I been betrayed that I don't have anything, that I haven't resolved around it yet. And maybe we don't even know. Maybe it's completely in our blind spot. So I definitely want to get into this with you today, because I know you've got some amazing advice for us. But first, I'd love to hear your story. What happened in your life that made you want to pursue this and become the expert that you are today?
Sure. Well, first I want to say betrayal really is the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And it really comes in so many disguises. I mean, it could be someone, let's say it could be a parent child, where the rule is, I listen to you, you keep me safe. And then the parent does something horrible. Or it could be a best friend. Hey, your secret's safe with me. And then you see your secret on Facebook. Or a couple, we're going to stay faithful to one another, and then they don't. Or a business partner, we'll go into business together and grow this business. Or even self-betrayal. I just was speaking with someone before who said, you know what, Debi, I ate well, I exercised, I rested, I was drinking my green drinks, and I got breast cancer. So that feels like a self-betrayal. So it has so many different faces, but really the way it works is it keeps kind of finding us until we heal it. So I had this family betrayal, and I didn't obviously learn the lesson I was supposed to learn from that. So I had a betrayal from my husband, and that sent me right into this PhD program in transpersonal psychology. That's the psychology of transformation and human potential. I became obsessed with transformation because I was doing it. I saw that he was, but I wanted to understand it further. And I needed to understand how the mind works, why we do what we do, and how I could possibly heal from this. So while I was there, I did a study, and it was on how women experience betrayal, what holds them back and what helps them heal. And it was discovered that while we can stay in any stage for years, decades, a lifetime, if we're going to go from that shock of betrayal, and I can go through all the stages, to that place of transformation, we're going to go through these 5 proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting is now we know physically, mentally, and emotionally what happens at every stage and what it takes to move from one stage to the next. So that was one discovery, which was so exciting because, I remember going into it saying, wow, you know how there are the stages of grief. If I could come out of this with some sort of stages of betrayal where here's where you are, but hang on, this is what's coming. What a wonderful study it would be. And that's what happened. But we also made 2 more discoveries. One was, originally, I was studying something called post-traumatic growth, which is kind of the upside of trauma. If there's an upside, the new perspective, the new awareness, what you've gained because of it. And I realized, I've been through death of a loved one, disease, but betrayal felt so different for me. And so I didn't want to just assume that all my study participants felt the same way. So I brought it back out to the study participants, and sure enough, they agreed. They said, "Oh, it's vastly different." So we coined a new term, and that term is post-betrayal transformation. So that's the state achieved after the specific healing of betrayal, which involves so many other things in addition to just, the grieving and all the other things that happen with another trauma. And then there was a third discovery, and this was that there's a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal that it's become known as post-betrayal syndrome. So I have a quiz to see to what level are you struggling.
Fascinating. Let's unpack everything you said.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
this study that you did, was it during while you were earning your PhD? Was it part of your PhD to do this study?
It was and then I wrote a dissertation on it. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you're writing a dissertation, I remember people saying, "Oh, a PhD is earned," and I didn't really fully understand that until I started writing one, and it's so true. And I didn't want to do the type of study called a quantitative study where you ask a tremendous amount of people. I wanted what's called a qualitative study, which is a deep, deep dive. I wanted to know the lived experience of all of these study participants. And it's interesting because originally I was looking for someone who'd been betrayed by a family member, partner, or friend. And as I was getting participants, I couldn't find anybody who was broken. Of course, we're never broken, bent, who was so distraught enough from a friend. Sure, they anger us. We get furious. We cut them off and all these things, but nobody brings us to our knees like a family member or a partner. And when, think about it, when the people you trust the most prove untrustworthy, who do you trust? When the ones you'd run to when other people are causing harm are in fact the ones causing the harm, where do you go? It's so devastating on every level because a primal need is to feel safe. And betrayal destroys any sense of safety or security that we ever had.
I bet. One of the biggest betrayals I ever had was a business partner. A few years ago, my husband and I were in really tight with our business partner. We considered him practically family. And he pulled the rug out from underneath us, and overnight our business went poof. And we lost 70% of our income overnight. And what hurt the most was that the friendship that I thought we had, which we had built over years, was betrayed. And for what? For money. When we were all doing well, the business was growing. The customers were happy. We were happy. Everyone was happy. And he wanted it all for himself. And in doing so, he blew up the entire thing. I mean, it turned out he was an alcoholic, and it was like just, he had his own, demons in his closet. But my husband, who's been through divorce before, said it was more painful for him going through this betrayal than his divorces. Because at least with the divorce, they kind of was amicable. Even though it was painful, it was amicable. They both came to the same conclusion. But this slapped us out of nowhere.
That's it. And we're never betrayed by someone we don't know. It's by the people we're the closest to. And here's someone without our awareness or consent put their needs above ours. And and one of the reasons why it hurts so much is because it's intentional. With let's say natural disaster or death of a loved one, it's not intentional. Here someone said, "I am going to intentionally hurt you," and that's what we just can't fathom. That it's so beyond what we can hold in our awareness. So it's a shock to the body and mind, and then of course the body suffers, and the mind and emotionally. But there's a way to heal from all of it, and it's through those stages.
Interesting. So you found that the people that did go through all the stages healed.
Oh, a woman said to me and I have a 6-week program now that moves you from one stage to the next. And there was a woman in the program. She said, "Oh my gosh, Debbie, this would have saved me 20 years of pain," because you can get stuck in a stage for a lifetime. And especially if you don't even know you're stuck there, you just think that's the way it is. Might as well just unpack here, might as well plant roots here, might as well just stay here. This is where I've been sort of placed. But that doesn't mean you're supposed to stay. It means here's where you are. What lesson can you learn? What can you do to move you to the next stage? You're not meant to stay there at all. But we don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that when we're in it.
Let's go back to when you were doing your qualitative study for your
Mm-hmm.
PhD, and give us some information. How many people were in it? How long did it take? What were the biggest aha moments that you had as you were going through this study?
Yeah, I had 14 of the bravest, strongest, just most incredible women. I call them the Fab 14, and they had they felt they contributed to the study because they felt they had learned so much from their experience. They wanted an opportunity to share it, and these were deep interviews. And the first thing I did was I shared with them my story because I didn't want them to think, oh, I have no idea what you're going through. I had every idea of what they've been through. And the stories were so different, but the pain was the same. The methodology that like the different exercises or ways they chose to handle it were different, but I kept seeing these common themes over and over and over again. But I'll tell you, and this was my assumption, and you have to put assumptions aside when you're doing research. I assumed that the people who were the hardest hit would grow the least, and in fact, that was not the case at all. What I found was the ones who, let's say, medicated because they couldn't deal, they grew the least. The ones who had the least amount of consequence to their betrayer grew the least. The ones who were so afraid to surrender to, okay, what does this mean for me now? They grew the least. And they were also the most physically sick because there really wasn't a price to pay. If someone betrays you, whether this is a friend or a family member or a partner, and there's really no repercussions for that, nothing really has to change. But what happens is here we're taking that on and we're trying to then make excuses for them or somehow recreate something, but the body can't handle that. It just can't. And another thing I found in the study too was when we're betrayed, we're protecting our betrayer. So often we protect our betrayer because we don't want, our family to feel uncomfortable, or we don't want to upset this person or that person, or, oh, they've loved that person for years. I don't want to, just get them thinking differently, or I don't want the pity. And here's where we need the support the most, and we're the least likely to reach out for it. I'll tell you, this was also one of the reasons why at the end of the 6-week program, I have 2 different certification programs. One is to be a certified PBT, post-betrayal transformation support group host. The other to be a certified PBT practitioner. Every single woman in this study said she would have benefited from support. Not to sit and commiserate, but just to speak to people who get it. And this is when we reach out the least. So I created the support group hosts, or the opportunity to be a support group host. So women, when they need it, it's available to them. And for the host, because nothing heals more than when we teach. Like here I am, I'm speaking with you now. I'm healing because I'm teaching, and it's the same thing. So the hosts have an opportunity to teach, and the people going to the groups have an opportunity to just get that support. But it's devastating to the body and mind, but there's a way out of it, and that's the gift that came from all of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, unpacking the 3 discoveries. Let's talk about each one of them in more detail.
Sure.
So you discovered that after the shock of betrayal, that there were commonly 5 stages we could move through. Can you? And this was one of your discoveries?
Yeah. So it's the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. The first is it's sort of like a setup phase. And this is what I saw with every single participant in this study, me included. And by no means, I want to make it really clear, this isn't a blame thing or any kind of judgment. It's what I saw. And I believe it's because women are so capable. And here's what I saw. If you imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical. What I saw with every single woman in the study was they were so busy prioritizing the physical and the mental. It was as if their mind was telling them what their bodies should do, and they were one big to-do list, doing a whole lot of doing, not much being. So turning up the thinking, turning down the feeling. And just imagine a table. If you're only strengthening two legs of that table, the table is shaky and unstable. And that's what I saw. So now if you're shaky and unstable, you've also, if you're neglecting the spiritual and the emotional, you've turned down your intuition, which was something that every single woman did, because she also felt, I heard this over and over. I felt like something wasn't right. Something didn't seem right, but I didn't pay attention. I was too busy. Something didn't, I don't know. Like, I'm sure if you remember, if you really look back at the experience with your, that business partner, something may not have felt quite right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a setup, because then phase 2 comes around, which is here you're blindsided by your experience. Your intuition is down, so you're even more shocked. So here's the shock to where you have your experience, and stage 2 is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So think about it now. You have this experience. It is imprinted on your body and mind. You ignite the stress response. So now you're having all kinds of physical challenges. Your adrenals are freaking out. You're absolutely exhausted. Your immune system is down. Your gut is wrecked. Your head, your digestive, so your hormones are shifting. Weight changes. Accelerated aging, I mean, to name a few. The mind is in a complete state of chaos, confusion, overwhelm. We can't wrap our minds around this because it doesn't make any kind of sense. I remember one participant saying, it was like any physical symptom that could happen, along with the feeling of losing a child in a crowd. Like that. It felt like that. You feel like you got punched in the gut. The wind is knocked right out of you. You absolutely just can't make sense of this. And then there's a breakdown of the worldview. The worldview is how you see the world. It's based on your rules. This person's safe. I can trust this person. These are the rules that govern how I manage my life. So now, if the people you trusted prove untrustworthy and all those rules are shattered, it's like you're free floating here. You have no rules, you have no guidelines, you have no structure. It's terrifying. So this is the scariest stage. And here's where, exactly like you said, the bottom just bottoms out on you. But think about it. If the bottom bottoms out, you would do everything you could. If you're walking down the street and the ground just bottomed out, you would grab hold of whatever you could. And that's stage 3. Stage 3 is survival. Survival instincts are emerging. It is the most practical stage. I'm sure, going back to the situation with you and your husband, how will we pay our bills? What will we do? How will we make money? How will we get through this? Who do I speak to about it? How do I get out of this? That's stage 3. It is just entirely practical. Stress response is still engaged because we're in fear, total fear here. And people stay stuck in stage 3 forever. Then when we know we're safe, when we figure out, okay, I'll live here, I'll have this job, I'll make my money this way, I can feed my kids that way, whatever it is that we need to work through, I could speak to that person, whatever it is, we slowly move into stage 4, which is finding and adjusting to a new normal. Your old normal doesn't exist anymore. It's just no longer there. And we can keep wishing it were there. We can keep checking to see if it's there, but it's no longer there. And, the only way I can really equate it to is like if you've ever moved, you leave your condo, your house, your apartment, your old office, whatever, and you move into your new space. It's not comfortable yet. You don't have your stuff in there. You don't know your route to get to wherever you're going, but it's going to be okay. And when you really believe that it's going to be okay, you start turning that stress response down, and at least you're not causing damage anymore, physical destruction. You've stopped causing destruction. You may not be healing quite yet, but at least the damage is stopping. And now you're here for a while. You're in stage 4. You're making it your new normal. And when you really believe, okay, you know what? I can make this work. This is good. You now have a little more bandwidth for self-care. And here's where we move into stage 5, which is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Now you're more interested in your own self-care. You didn't care about how you were eating or how you were moving beforehand. You were just thinking about survival. Now you're eating because you love yourself. You deserve it. You want to nurture yourself a little bit. You want to move because it feels good. Now you're more interested in taking care of yourself. A new mind based on a new set of beliefs that you're constructing based on where you are now and a new worldview. You're creating this new worldview based on your experience. And that table that I mentioned in the beginning, where we were only prioritizing the mental and the physical and neglecting the emotional and the spiritual, here we are solidly grounded on all four. And when we get to this space of post-betrayal transformation, I mean, there's so much richness and texture and strength and wisdom coming from us from this place. I mean, here's where we're truly unshakable.
I missed for the names of the first 3 stages. Can we go through those again?
Sure. The first stage is that it's really that prioritizing of the mental and the physical, and we're neglecting the emotional and the spiritual.
Got it. Okay. Does
Yeah.
the first stage happen before the betrayal? Like, because you said that we might have been so wrapped up in life and so wrapped up in the to-do list that we were ignoring our intuition and maybe the signs leading up to the betrayal. So is the first stage possibly before betrayal?
Yes, but this doesn't mean that if you're walking around that way, you're destined to be betrayed. What it means is by turning down your intuition, by just going without, and just endlessly knocking things off your to-do list without anything else, we have shut down the parts of ourselves that knows so much more, that feels so much more. So where we experience such a deeper and profound shock because we never saw it coming. You don't see it coming anyway, but when we turn down our intuition, when we're just too busy to pay attention to anything other than we just have to get these things done, it provides such a bigger shock. And what I find too, betrayal, it'll affect everyone, but it can affect us more. I find that, let's say, an empath, I'm an empath, and I'm sure many people listening here are very empathic, and it almost affects us to some degree more because an empath is so tuned in to someone else's feelings, they would never imagine hurting someone else because they know how it would feel. So if it's not even in our realm of consciousness to hurt somebody because we know what it would feel, we would never want anybody to experience that pain. It's such a shock because we assume that other people are thinking the way we are.
So true. And what was the name of the second stage?
The second one is the breakdown of the body, the mind, the worldview. This is the scariest stage. Everything that we've known we're shocked. We're just shocked. We're blindsided. Everything we've known is no longer real and true, but a new set of beliefs, a new worldview hasn't been formed yet. So it's terrifying.
And in that phase, we could be going through any emotion, because they say like the phases of grief. You've got anger, and the person's denying it, or but your phases don't really talk about specific emotions, because you're saying in the phase of shock you could be angry, right, and shock, or you could be afraid and shock, or you could have all the gamut of emotions while you're in that shock.
Certain stages are more indicative of certain emotions, but in that stage that you're speaking about, it is absolutely, there is anger, there could be rage, there's sadness, and it is absolutely this combination because you're so angry at the idea. There are a few levels of anger here. You're angry that someone you trusted could put their needs above ours, and so often we're also at this stage, we're angry at ourselves. We're like, I'm a bright man, I'm a bright woman, how did I not know this from the person who I felt safe with? It doesn't make any sense. So it's this jumble of anger from I'm angry at them, I'm angry at me, I'm angry at, I'm angry at the universe or whoever you're angry at. And there's this sadness, deep sadness, this it could be depression, it could be so many. It's the spectrum here of emotions. And one of the things I also saw with every single participant, they could have been religious or not. But what I saw for two reasons was at some point, they needed this sense of connectedness and trust, which can take a lifetime to build and can be shattered in an instant. They wanted to rebuild trust. And especially as they're moving towards trust, think about it. You don't trust your betrayer. You don't trust yourself. And they reasoned, at least I could trust God, the universe, source, energy, whatever you call it. And it was this movement towards, whether it was religion, it was the spiritual side of their religion. If it could have been religion, abandoning religion to spirituality, or if they really didn't feel much of anything, a movement towards spirituality. And I'll tell you that absolutely was the case with me too. I had become spiritual over the last 10 years, but that put me on a path to healing, because otherwise you're wondering, why is this happening, and what could possibly be the benefit here? And spirituality is a huge component in seeing what the benefit could possibly be.
So when does that happen? Does that obviously happens after shock and after survival? So around stage 4, when they're finding and adjusting to the new world, to the new norm, is when they start to seek that desire to have faith and desire to have connectiveness.
That was a little more fluid. It comes in earlier or later, for depending on who it was, what they had access to. But what I also saw is something, such an important component of this is it's called a coherent narrative. And this is also something that's done with post-traumatic growth, where you're making sense and making meaning out of the experience. And what you're doing essentially in this, with writing figuratively or literally, is taking your experience from making it your entire life story and making it a defining chapter of your story. So it's in the modules of the 6-week program. That is absolutely an activity that I have everybody do. And I ask very pointed questions. And in the beginning, early on, in the earlier stages, you're thinking, what the heck could be the benefit of something like this? But as you go through it, you see, or when you get to a certain stage, you're more willing to see, oh, I get it. This person had to show up in my life because I didn't realize how lovable, worthy, and deserving I really am, or I didn't realize my boundaries had always gotten crossed. So this person coming in to demonstrate this, I get it. Now I realize I will never accept this again. I'll never allow this again. And it actually creates and allows for such a new, powerful version of you. But the old you has to die. It's death and rebirth. It's the death of who you were, allowing for the rebirth of someone new.
What if the betrayal is not like there hasn't been an end to it? So the cancer example, like the person goes through cancer treatment or goes either natural or alternative, natural or allopathic, and the cancer keeps coming back, or they keep getting bad test results for cancer showing up in other areas, or maybe it's a partner that keeps cheating, or maybe so something where it's an ongoing betrayal or continually triggering them because the betrayal is continually happening. Or maybe it's like going through a really tough battle, a court battle. So it feels like it keeps happening to that person. Can they go through these stages even though the betrayal is still ongoing, or does it have to complete?
And I could speak to betrayal. So coming from that space, if a partner is continuously having an affair, it's likely that the person on the other end of it is bringing the same version of them into it, which is allowing for the same behavior to unfold, right? Without any consequences, there really doesn't need to be much change. So it's not always the case that you can move on or rebuild. It's really different for everybody based on your willingness. And I can tell you, here's where, and to answer your question, so to specifically answer your question, if a betrayal keeps happening, you have not died to the life you've known and created a new one, because the old you that was allowing for it still is showing up. So we write the script for how other people treat us, and a new script clearly isn't written. And here's where we may be making excuses. Oh, well, they came from a hard childhood, or, oh, it's because of me. No, it's not. If, certain rules have to change, a relationship has to be redefined, and a beautiful relationship can unfold, but it's got to be based on a new set of rules, respect, expectations, honesty, or it's not a new relationship. So, that's one piece of it here. But the other part of this is, sometimes, when it comes to there's moving on and there's rebuilding, two entirely different things. And it really depends on, it does depend on the relationship. And here's where forgiveness is a huge piece of this. But what I see so many people doing is they'll forgive. There's the if-then rule when it comes to forgiveness. If you feel safe and valued and you forgive, you'll feel better for it. You've just done something that takes a lot to do. If you do not feel safe and valued and you forgive, you're going to feel worse. So many people, and what I saw in my study too, they forgave before they were ready. They forgave before it was a new relationship, and things didn't change, very much. But I would really invite them, if you are looking to forgive and rebuild, there are these 4 levels. And if you want, I can go through the 4 levels with you.
Yes, please.
Sure. So there's an official name for it. I call it the window of willingness. So here's where someone is going from, let's say, the most likely and they're the most receptive to forgiving, and the least. And forgiveness is a huge piece when it comes to betrayal. Here's where, if we are going to forgive, we're the most likely. And if we're going to ask for forgiveness, here's where best case scenario to worst case scenario of what the person on the other end is going to be willing to do. So the first one is where we're the most likely. And this involves apology, remorse, and restitution. And it looks like this. I'm so sorry. Apology. I feel so bad for what I said or did. Remorse. What can I do to make it up to you? And here's where empathy is high. Our heart is speaking to their heart, and we're just connecting. We're owning it. We're taking full responsibility. And if someone is willing to forgive, it's going to be here. The next level window closes a bit because empathy goes down, defensiveness comes up. And here's where we're making excuses. Like, I was late because there was traffic. I did it because I was drunk. Anything involving the word because. Just know, if you're on, look at this through 2 lenses. If you've caused someone harm, are you using the word because? If you've been, hurt, to someone say because, you'll see you may be willing to forgive, but it doesn't feel as good as that level 1. Level 3 is now there's blame. So I call this the 2-sided slap, where here someone did something and then they're blaming you for it. Like, well, I did this, slap on one side, because you did that, or I said this because you said that. And this doesn't feel good at all. What's good about that? Someone still may be willing to forgive, but this doesn't feel good at all. And then, of course, the fourth level is flat out denial. This is somebody taking no responsibility for what they said or what they did. And here's where we struggle. And this gets back to that earlier question, where what do you do with that when there's no it doesn't end, and especially when it comes to betrayal, where's the closure? Where's the justice? And I tell people, well, justice is karma's job, but closure's yours. And this just happened to me recently, and it really shows what you can do when you have that flat out denial, someone taking absolutely no responsibility, but when you do the work and you can heal. So, I can share that story. Um, and here it was. I mean, I grew up with this relative, and it was a lifetime of mental and emotional abuse. And 15 years ago, I cut ties because this relationship was so toxic. I really thought it was going to kill me. And just a few months ago, I was in LA. I'm at the airport, and I'm at my gate, and at the gate is also somebody who looks just like this relative. And I'm thinking to myself, could that be? And then I start shaking, just shaking. The body
Mm.
knows. And I didn't even know what I was going to do. I had no idea. I got my composure as best I could and found myself just standing right next to him. And clearly I was invading his space, not in a bad way, but just I wanted to speak to him. And he looks at me like, who's this woman invading my space? And didn't acknowledge me. So I just asked, I said, do you know who I am? And at first he says no, as in, I'm not saying yes, because then I have to face everything I've said and done over the years. And I'm not doing that. And hopefully, like a bad dream, I'll just open my eyes and you'll be gone. And I didn't move. So I asked again, do you know who I am? And this time it was an angry no, as in, you're dead to me, like going from a flat out denial to a blame, number three. And that didn't work. And I still stood there. Um, and I think when he realized that I wasn't moving, he acknowledged me. And here's how you know you've done the work. I hugged him. We spoke for a few minutes. He boards the plane and he says, I'll see you on the other side. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I boarded in a later group. I'm like, well, we have 5 hours. Maybe he'll come over, finish our conversation. I don't know. Uh, 5 hours comes and goes. I don't see him. We're getting ready to land. And I'm thinking, well, at the very least, maybe he'll wait outside the plane and say, hey, have a nice life. And plane lands. I gather my stuff. I walk off and I never saw him again. And I felt the most profound sense of peace and closure and freedom. I was done. I was good. And that's how you know. That's how you know you're done.
How did you get to that point? Weren't you shaking at the beginning because of
Mhm.
everything that you had been through with this guy?
Mhm. Mhm. This was a process of what's the benefit? What's the gift on the other end of this? I cut ties off 15 years earlier, and really it was honestly it was in the last once I went into this study and understood betrayal at the roots and then really searched for what the benefit could be in all this and who I could be because of this. You go from this place of you're so sad because you don't understand how somebody could treat you like this. Then you get so super angry. Then you actually have pity because you're like, wow, that's so sad that you have to treat another human being like this. And then you actually move towards compassion where you say, wow, I feel badly, but I'm sending you love and light because you obviously have to move through life this way to I don't know, to get whatever you're getting, do whatever you're doing, but I'm choosing a very different path. And I never felt so free. Now, this is forgiving and moving on. Forgiving and rebuilding is that's what I did with my husband. That's a whole other animal. Um, and it's messy. But it's transformation. I mean, it's a whole different thing.
So in these levels of forgiveness, did he in that time in the airport, did he say he was sorry? Did he apologize? Or was it you internally forgiving him and just and putting it to bed, closing it?
Yeah, this was going from that flat out denial. I mean, he wouldn't even acknowledge who I was. So it was a flat out denial. And then that second no, was when I asked, do you know who I am? No, as in blaming me somehow, like,
Mm.
and I can't even tell you why I didn't walk away. I think that's it. When you do the work, there is this strength that
Mhm.
that just comes through you because you're not hiding. you're so secure in who you are and who you've become. And you know how I was saying before about the new set of beliefs and the new worldview and the strength that emerges because of where you've been and what you've learned in the process. And this was someone who I was terrified of my whole life. And then when I looked at it really objectively, I'm like, wow, he can't even acknowledge who I am and how to run away, instead of really saying, even on the other end of that flight, hey, have a good life. It couldn't even do that. So um, it made me feel so grounded to think, okay, here you've been, I've been slaying my dragons and doing the work and all of this, and then when it's time, we get these opportunities really to see how far we've grown. And I saw it. And it's like with betrayal, you get these triggers all the time when you've been betrayed. Let's say it's infidelity, you get triggered with, okay, that this is a reminder, something reminds you, and each one is really just a test to see, okay, how you doing with it today? How are you showing up with this? Or even like with the experience that you had with that business partner. If you were to see him or her, how would you respond? And that's how have you done the work, or is there still so much anger and resentment and bitterness there? And I'll tell you, the person who's caused the hurt, whether they're aware of it or not, their emotions are shame. Shame is the most physically destructive emotion that we have. The only way to heal it is to bring light and honor to it. But what do? We don't want to face it. So we do everything we can to numb, avoid, distract. And we'll use food or drugs or alcohol or work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, anything, because we're desperately trying to distract ourselves from ourselves. But then on the other end of it, the person who's been hurt, they're walking around with angerness and bitterness and resentment, and those emotions are a close second. They'll take you down.
You're saying that the betrayer feels shame. What about the betrayed? Do they feel shame? Maybe feel shame because they got caught with their pants down, or shame because now they're like if they were sexually abused, or if all their money was stolen from a family member or from a friend, and they can a person who's betrayed be caught in a shame loop as well?
Yeah, shame is such a huge emotion. They definitely can be, because on some level they could be thinking, what could I have possibly done here, or what role have I played in bringing this on? Again, it's not a blame thing, but there's always some aspect of it where we look at ourselves, and sure, blame is, and shame, they're huge emotions. But it's really in taking a look at it and untangling all of it, but looking at it saying, okay, this happened for a reason. We don't quite yet know what it may be, but what can I extract from this to make myself stronger, better, wiser? What can I do to heal, to move forward, to make this experience such a like a launch pad to learn and grow. Like, here I am. I created the PBT, Post Betrayal Transformation Institute, and I'm teaching and coaching and having these support group hosts and these practitioners emerging as a result. So you look at it and you say, okay, this was by far the most devastatingly painful experiences that I've had, these betrayals from the people that were closest to me. But if you could bring something from it, bring something new because of it, then you know what? Maybe it's a gift.
Recently, I had on the show a health expert that sells a magnesium soak, and amazing magnesium soak. And she also had a program where she would work with women who had hormone imbalance and coach them as a group, and lots of nutrition and food and lifestyle changes. And at the end of the program, it was an incredible success. Many women got the results they were looking for, whether they no longer had hot flashes or they got their cycle back, or whatever they were looking for. But there was a small group of women who did all the work. They did absolutely everything and had no shift in their health. And so she said to them, I will for free keep coaching if you guys are willing to work with me because I want to get to the bottom of this. And so there was like, I think 4 or 5 of them or 6 of them is a small group of women. And so she sat with them for weeks, and they dove in, and she finally figured out. And these women were, like I said, they changed their lifestyle, they changed their diet, they took supplements, they did everything, and nothing was shifting. And what they all had in common was they had deep unresolved shame. And so when they addressed that and they healed that, which is a process, right? But when they healed it, then all the women's health started to shift. It was like shame can hold us back.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It is so huge, and we don't recognize it. We don't see it. I'll tell you, I have worked with so many women who you would think, of course, they want to get rid of the weight or the disease or whatever. But I'll tell you, if they haven't figured out who they'd be without it, it's not going anywhere, because there's also this fear of the unknown, and that's terrifying. It's the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And I've seen this so many times. They start wearing their story like a security blanket, and it becomes so familiar. It's their identity. We don't want to be without an identity.
I think even shame for men might be even harder because we don't have a society where men can talk about their emotions like it's acceptable for women to talk about it, but it's still in many parts of the world not acceptable for men to fully self-express emotions. And so it gets bottled up. And so I invite both male and female listeners to create that safe environment for the men in our life to be able to express their emotions, and also for us as women to find a safe place, to find a safe relationship or either we have to hire a professional and work with a professional, or like a mental health counselor, for example, or find a friend that we know we can express this, or like you said with your groups where the women create a supportive group. It's so important that we feel safe enough to sort of unload and get it off our chest and get it out from being in our head. Well, because when we're in our head, it's just running around like a rat in a cage, and we're not going to heal just by having these thoughts just scurry around in our head. Um, do you have any advice for people who realize they might have unresolved shame? What are some steps they can take to begin to heal that?
The first thing is you can't heal anything you're not aware of. So if you're even, I would look at it and say, what physical symptoms do you have? Because that's your emotions are manifesting physically. Once it gets to the point of being physical, there's something going on. And there's such an energetic component to, like, I remember, and this is so tied to my betrayal, I had extreme arthritis. And here I was young. It's like, what am I doing with arthritis? And I remember every health expert I went to said, "Oh, it's because of your years of running." Because I had been a runner. It had been in my feet. From the outside, they looked totally fine. Inside, I had worn away all my cartilage. It was excruciatingly painful to take a step. I could not bend my toes, so I would walk on the outside of my feet and like threw off my back. It was awful. And I did that for a really long time. And I remember, like, it got to the point where, and I loved wearing heels, couldn't wear heels because, I mean, think about what that does to your foot, right? It totally puts it in that bent position. So, and if I did, I'd just be in so much pain. And I remember I was wearing sneakers, I mean, totally flat. And I was with my husband, and this is after, we were definitely on a much better path. And it was this one moment. It was a moment that I felt so totally safe. And I remember the moment so well. It just felt so normal. And someone experiencing betrayal who's lost that sense of safety knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it was that moment of safety. And Ashley, I'll tell you, I woke up the next morning as if I were dancing all night in 6-inch heels. It was so excruciatingly painful. So here's where you take a look and you're like, what the heck? What's going on? And then I just opened myself up, like, why? And I get this message of Your hard stance keeps you in a hard stance. Like my hard, rigid, I'm not trusting again keeps me in so much bodily pain. And I'm
Mm.
not nearly profound enough to come up with that on my own, So that was just something downloaded. But these are the messages that we can receive when we open up and our body is expressing to us what the mind is trying to say and what we're supposed to be understanding.
Beautiful. That's beautifully said. So this system sounds amazing. To help someone to get to that place of post-traumatic growth.
Post
From
betrayal transformation, sure.
Yeah, through the post betrayal transformation. Now, post traumatic growth, was that one of the discoveries? Did you get more information about that as you made your discoveries?
That was what I was originally studying, which is the upside of any generalized upside of any trauma. And two researchers, Calhoun and Tedeschi, actually were the researchers who discovered post traumatic growth. Post betrayal transformation involves all the aspects of post traumatic growth plus the rebuilding of the self, because you're rebuilding a trust again, a sense of worthiness, confidence. You're healing from abandonment, rejection, all of those things that are so hard hit specifically with a betrayal experience.
Mm. Now, the three discoveries. So we've talked about the 5 stages. Um, was that the levels of forgiveness? Was that also part of your discovery?
No,
Okay.
forgiveness was a really important component when it comes to transformation. But the three discoveries were the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough, the understanding that healing from betrayal is so different than healing from other types of crises. So it needed that new term, which was coined post-betrayal transformation. And the third, that there is this collection of symptoms so common to betrayal that it's become known as post-betrayal syndrome. And that's what I have a quiz to see if someone is struggling, just right on my site.
Oh, very cool. Let's talk
Hmm.
about the quiz.
Sure.
Can we do the quiz now, or is it something that people need to do on the site, or can you walk us through the quiz now?
Yeah, that's something that you would need to do. And what it does is it asks you so many different questions and it creates such an awareness. Like you may think, oh, I'm good. I have no idea, I'm fine. And then you may say, oh, wow, you know what? I'm struggling to move forward, or I'm worried to trust again, or I want to move forward, but I don't know how, or yes, I do. Have extreme exhaustion or digestive issues, or my adrenals are whatever. So there are so many different questions where you see, wow, you know what, this I am feeling all of these things, and there are varying levels of this post betrayal syndrome, but these are symptoms we just so commonly see.
Can you give us some examples of how betrayal shows up physically in the body?
Hmm. The most common thing that we see is extreme fatigue. Extreme fatigue. You can to have a full night's sleep, wake up, you're exhausted. So that was something that we saw all the time. Digestive issues are so common, and so often the adrenals, they just tank. Your immune system gets suppressed, and then think about it. If your immune system is suppressed, you're not able to fight off things you normally be able to fight, and also most of your immune system is in your gut. So now we're not retaining. We may be eating this wonderful diet but not getting the benefit of it because we're not retaining it as well. So we're not retaining the nutrients. So it is this cascade that we see. And here's where we go to the most wonderful health experts who are incredible at healing the gut or whatever it is that they're doing. But these are all symptoms coming from that unhealed betrayal,
Right? They're not getting to the root cause.
right?
Absolutely. What about waking up in the middle of the night? People sometimes tell me they wake up in the middle of the night and their mind is racing. Is disrupted sleep also a common symptom?
Oh, just sleeplessness and extreme fatigue, absolutely. And here's the challenge too. At night, they say the veils are lifted, so we're just all the unresolved and unhealed everything just comes forging right to you right at night. So that's the hardest time for so many people.
And like you said, some people self-medicate, and those are the people that get
Hmm.
stuck because
Hmm.
they don't move forward. They don't actually gain the positive learnings.
Yeah, you're numbing, and maybe it's a way to help you manage your emotions and get through the day. But there's that saying, you have to feel it to heal it. And what I saw consistently, um, when you face it head on, it's it can be brutal, but you come out a warrior.
Mm. Can you give some actionable steps, some homework to the listener who now realizes they have some unresolved betrayal in their past? What can they begin to do today to move forward?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is say take the quiz because it'll show you exactly where you are. And the five stages, review the five stages that we talked about because you'll see to which level you're struggling at. Very common it's to be in a stage 3 for a really long time. So the first thing, awareness. I mean, that's always the key. And then depending on where you are, it would be a very different thing. If you've been through it for a while and you're ready to just take it to that next level, then possibly do that coherent narrative. See, what are the benefits of this experience? What did this person teach me? What have I learned because of it? What will I never allow again? Ask yourself these reflective questions and really see what shows up.
Now, you have a #1 best-selling book on Amazon, The Unshakable Woman: 4 Steps to Rebuilding Your Body, Mind, and Life After a Life Crisis, as well as the workbook, the companion book. The links to those are going to be in the show notes of today's podcast, learntrail.com. What's the difference between your book and your workbook and doing your online programs?
Well, the book and workbook is to heal from any life crisis. And I absolutely I am hitting on betrayal in there, but it's more general. The book is purposely very short because I want it read. The workbook has lots of experiential exercises, so it's a great combination. It's a part of the program for sure, the 6-week program. So if you're planning on doing the 6-week program, don't bother with the book because you'll be getting it as part of the program. But the upcoming book is specifically around the 5 stages and how to move through them. But the book will absolutely, I talk about forgiveness in there. I'm talking about what is needed in there, but it encompasses many different types of life crises.
And you said you have an upcoming book coming out?
Well, it actually would be my fourth, but
Fourth
yeah,
book?
that's
Excellent.
yeah. So this is going to be right now where we're not ready yet, but um, with the dissertation, when you write a dissertation and you think, okay, who's reading this besides a dissertation committee, and there was uh, so much effort in there and so many discoveries that it would be awful not to share what we've learned. So I wanted a way to really share these 5 stages, especially at a time where we're the least likely to seek support. The book will be able to just give you, to give you that support. I'm going to be walking you through the stages there, but you don't have to wait for the book. The 6-week program is, I mean, you can just do that right now.
Phenomenal. Let's talk about the 6-week program. What should we know about it?
It's you could start where you are. You don't have to be in a certain stage to start it. And what I'm doing is I'm walking you through the 6 stages with the 5 stages with experiential exercises to move you from one stage to the next. And what I hear from people is they really feel stuck in a certain stage, and that's what brought them into the program. And they may really spend extra time on those activities in that experiential with those exercises until they move. So I have 2 different versions of it. One is a pure home study, which they could do at their own time and at their own pace. And in this way, it's so inexpensive. Anybody can access it. And the other is sort of a next level up. And this is a live interactive component where it's the modules that you do at your own pace, but there's a live Q&A that I have in a private Facebook group. In this way, certain questions that you have, you bring to the live group. And this way we go through them together and I'm right there with you.
Fantastic. And so the 6-week program can be, you said that if they did the home study when they do it at their own pace, so it could be 12 weeks or it could be 2 weeks. But
Oh, it
it's
could be as long as you need, sure. I mean, a lot of people find that they do it, they go through it, but they have access to it and they love it. So this way, if something, a trigger pulls them back a little bit, oh, you know what? Maybe they needed to do that exercise a little more fully, and until they really know they've moved forward. But consistently, I'm hearing that. I heard from another woman, I wish I wish you had this years ago, and those kinds of things. So it's available now. We didn't know there were these 5 stages. We didn't know that you didn't have to stay stuck. We didn't know that our biggest crisis could be our greatest gift. And when we learn to trust again and love again and feel safe again and open our hearts again, we're living more fully, and that's what we're here for.
beautiful. When they do the program where they have the live Q&A in the Facebook group,
Mhm.
you must get to know them as you go through the course. Can you share some stories of success?
These are the bravest, most resilient women I know. And what they're doing is they're healing physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. They're getting rid of, if they had an adrenal issue, they're healing from it. They're losing the weight, they're getting in shape, they look better, they look younger, they're changing how they move through relationships. They're opening up their heart again for someone worthy and deserving of this new version of them. So I mean, that's the kind of thing I see all the time. Or they're rebuilding, and they're rebuilding with based on an entirely new set of rules and an entirely new marriage or relationship. So, or just a friendship, or they're just really clear who they're not allowing in and who they are allowing in. It's so different, but there is a strength and a resolve that I don't know if there's anyone stronger on the planet than a woman who's healed from betrayal.
Has a man or have men ever taken your program?
I've worked with men privately, a lot of men privately, and it's interesting because it's not that they feel any less. It's, as you said, it's not often accepted. So I see them privately, and it's interesting because the way it works when you do a study, you have to be so careful at explaining how your study was conducted, so the next set of researchers can take your study to the next level. And already, I've been notified that they want to take my study to the next level and maybe study a different population or a different age group, or even different cultures. I only know what it was like studying women of a certain age demographic, but it may be very different if men were to be studied. But yeah, I work with men privately.
Wonderful. Yeah, let's talk about your website. So,
Hmm.
your website, which is
Hmm. As in
pbtinstitute.com.
post betrayal transformation institute.com.
Wonderful. And of course, the links to everything you do are going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntrail.com. So you've got the quiz. We say we first get to the website, we should definitely take the quiz. But you've got lots of other goodies on your site. And then you also have the certification. So when I go to programs, there's private coaching, there's
Hmm.
bioenergetics wellness program,
Hmm.
Betrayal to Breakthrough Home Study, and Betrayal to Breakthrough Live. So the Betrayal to Breakthrough Live is the one with the Facebook group. So when
Hmm.
people who know that they really do best um, having that community and that connection, they should do that
Hmm.
one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because here's that community and that support that we need. The home study, this is wonderful if maybe you have a very supportive community already. Maybe you have close friendships or close relatives that you can lean on. You will absolutely move through the stages, but this is under the assumption that you're going to have that support, which is crucial, or they would have chosen the other, the the
Mm-hmm.
the other format. I want to make it such a no-brainer, so everybody gets in this program, and I didn't want it to be for any reason that for it to be that somebody couldn't access it. So definitely less expensive if that's an issue to do the home study, but please get the support because that's what's missing in the home study.
And then what is bioenergetics wellness program?
Yeah, this is, I can only heal to the extent that I know what someone's struggling with, but I know the emotions that we're experiencing a lot of times. But sometimes there's things that we don't even know we don't have access to. And what this is we have this field, this biofield, this bioenergetic field. And what this does, it's through, if you've heard of like biofeedback, this is like biofeedback on steroids. And it's through a simple scan, your biofield gets compared to, let's say, what would be a perfect biofield, and then it'll show any distortions in your field. And then with that, there are two different ways. There's this sort of a scanner, and there's also through infoceuticals, because we're mostly made up of water. So these infoceuticals are it's energy imprinted on water. And then what you do is, based on what your results show, you just get recommendations based on what it finds. And then you just take these infoceuticals and you'll see how these distortions just heal. I do it every month just on myself, and it's amazing what it's able to pick up and what it's done. It shows what needs, your priority, what's the biggest priority, and then as that heals, it'll show other things that are there. Like, for example, I remember testing my mother-in-law, and it showed one thing. It showed horror. Now that's like a scary thing to see, and I'm like, where'd that come from? And so I asked her. She said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that." She goes, "Debbie, I was living in the projects, and like across the hall, it was Miss McGillicuddy, whatever her name was. She had like 5 kids, and I saw her jump to her death." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And she remembered it instantly. That's stored. See, these emotions, these experiences get stored, and it creates disease. So what I love about this is, here's such a simple way for me to detect what's not being seen, and then a way to help someone heal from it.
Oh, those poor kids.
Could you imagine?
I can imagine the horror that she held inside of her. Some people who are really grounded in only the physical science, only physical reality, would poo-poo that. But I have seen so much shift through energetic medicine and through, just the power of frequency. We, just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We
Absolutely.
have to remember that.
And that's why I took this on as just an addition for my own business, because it allows me to see what I can't see and then help someone heal.
So does someone have to be physically with you to do bioenergetic wellness, or
No.
so you can do it over Skype anywhere around the world?
Anywhere. And they just need they get the scanner, and then I get their scan, and that's the way we do it.
Oh, interesting. Can you tell me who created it?
This is it's by NES Health. So if you look it up, you can see them all over the place. It's wonderful.
Yep, I have heard of this before. This is not is not new.
No.
But it works. It's very cool.
It does. It's a wonderful addition to my business, because it's just another healing tool.
Tell me about the certification. We have a lot of holistic health experts that listen to the show. We have nurses, massage therapists, acupuncturists, chiropractors, naturopaths. The list goes on and on. And so I'm sure that all the holistic health practitioners that listen are always interested in growing their tool belt. Is this is something that they can take, or can a layperson take your certification as well?
Well, the 6-week program is a prerequisite for either certification, because that's like the bones. You need to know the 5 stages. You need to know the experiential exercises to move you from one stage to the next. Coming out of there, you're eligible to take one of 2. Now, the layperson would take the certification to become a PBT support group host, where then they could help, they could host their own support group. We're here I have someone on staff just where their job is to help them create content for their groups, and however we can support them. I promote their groups. I put it in my newsletter, and if I'm able to, I can pop into a group meeting, or we can Skype me in to a meeting if that's at all possible. And it's a way for people to get the support, and also for the support group hosts to teach, which I mentioned before. And my intention is to get these support groups in every state, in every country, eventually every couple of blocks, and then I'm done. Um, yeah. And then we
Right.
have the certified PBT practitioner. And this is, so let's say someone who is a coach, a healer of some kind, a doctor, a therapist, has this toolkit, which now they know what's specific to betrayal. What are the physical, mental, emotional the symptoms? What's the cocktail that seems to come in, that's created, that someone can present with, and they have this additional tool belt to help them. Like just how I'm using the NES Health as an addition to my business, they would use their practitioner certification for theirs. And then they get to have this really cool logo that they can put on their site that they're a certified support group host or practitioner, and we support them. I mean, that's the whole idea. It's really to create awareness and healing for something that has gone on forever, but now there's a way to heal.
Beautiful. Wonderful. It has been such an honor to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Ashley.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Is there anything that we've left unsaid? Is there anything that you still feel that we need to make sure we cover or teach before we wrap up today's interview?
The only thing I would really add is I understand how painful it is. I know how much it hurts. I know that any betrayal has rocked your world and has blindsided you and has just sent everything you've known and felt comfortable with in a complete, blender, of disarray. But I also know that healing, transformation, and the strongest version of you is on the other side of that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Please come back every time you publish a book. I want you to come back and promote it and teach us more.
Oh, thank you. That's a deal. Thank you, Ashley.
Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com, and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.